I was on the balcony watering the geraniums, my late husband's favorite, when my phone rang. The name Kevin flashed on the screen, and my heart involuntarily skipped a beat. My son hadn't called me in 2 weeks. "Mom," Kevin's familiar voice came through, but it carried a lightness I didn't recognize. "Tonight at 6 o'clock, the Sterling Cut, the Gold Room. Jessica is treating the whole family to dinner. Be there on time, okay?" Before I could even reply, the line went dead. I stood frozen, holding the phone, as water from the watering can overflowed the pot and soaked my canvas sneakers. Jessica treating the family to dinner? That'll be the day. To say my daughter-in-law, Jessica, and I were like oil and water would be an understatement. Since she married into our family 5 years ago, I became the old hag in her eyes, and she became the thorn in my side I could never remove. She thought I was old-fashioned. I thought she was materialistic. She found me long-winded. I found her ill-mannered. My only comfort was that my son, Kevin, was still somewhat dutiful, though since his marriage he had clearly fallen under her spell. At least he kept up appearances. I glanced at the old regulator clock on the wall, a gift from my husband. It was 4:20 in the afternoon. Getting to the Sterling Cut from my house required 2 bus transfers. I needed to leave early. I quickly wiped my shoes, pulled out the navy blue blazer I only wore on important occasions, and carefully combed my white hair until not a strand was out of place. Even though I couldn't stand Jessica, it was a family gathering, and I couldn't embarrass my son. At 5 o'clock sharp, I locked the door and set out. The late summer sun was still brutal, and by the time I squeezed onto the second bus, my back was drenched in sweat. The bus was packed, shoulder to shoulder, and not a single person offered a seat to an old woman. I gripped the handrail tightly, thinking to myself, for my son, what's a little hardship? At 5:50, I stood before the imposing entrance of the Sterling Cut, smoothing out my wrinkled blazer. A hostess with a bright smile asked if I had a reservation. "The Gold Room, reserved by Mr. Kevin Vance," I said. She checked her list, her expression turning strange. "I'm sorry, the party for the Gold Room has already been seated, but your name isn't on the list. My last name is Vance. Kevin Vance is my son." My voice rose unintentionally. The hostess checked the list again, then said awkwardly, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but there really isn't a spot reserved for you. Perhaps you could give them a call." My hands began to tremble, but I pulled out my phone and dialed Kevin's number. It rang 7 or 8 times. Just as I thought no one would answer, Jessica's sharp, high-pitched voice came through. "Hello? Jessica? It's Mom. I'm at the Sterling Cut. The hostess says my name isn't on the list." "Oh, Mom." Jessica's voice was dripping with condescension. "It's just a small family dinner tonight. We didn't save a spot for you. You should just head home. We'll call you next time." The line went dead. I stood in the magnificent, gilded lobby of the restaurant, a sudden chill running through my body. People bustled around me, the sounds of clinking glasses and laughter spilling from every private room. I was like an out-of-place ghost, completely at odds with the festive atmosphere. "Ma'am, are you all right?" the hostess asked with concern. I shook my head and turned to push open the heavy glass door. The sky outside had darkened. The city lights were beginning to glow, and the streets were a river of traffic. I stood monotony on the sidewalk, not knowing where to go. Home? Back to that empty house, to eat leftovers in front of my husband's portrait? Just then, my phone rang again. I mechanically pressed the answer button. "Mom, where are you?" It was Kevin's voice this time, the background noise loud, as if he were at a party. "I'm outside the Sterling Cut," I replied, my voice dry. "Great. Mom, can you come up to the Gold Room right away?" "It's an emergency." My heart raced. Had they changed their minds? I hurried back inside. The hostess saw me return, her face filled with confusion. "My son asked me to come up," I said, a pleading tone in my voice that I hated. "The Gold Room is at the end of the hall on the 2nd floor." I stood before the ornate wooden door, took a deep breath, and knocked lightly. No response. I knocked again, a little harder this time. The door cracked open, revealing Jessica's heavily made-up face. When she saw it was me, she didn't move aside but blocked the opening even more. "Mom, can you go to the front desk and settle the bill for us?" She held out a gold credit card. "The PIN is Kevin's birthday." I was stunned. Didn't you ask me to come for dinner? Jessica rolled her eyes with impatience. We've already finished. Please hurry, the server is waiting. She shut the door before I could even glimpse who was inside. I held the credit card as if it were a burning piece of coal. Downstairs at the cashier's desk, the clerk took the card, swiped it, and then frowned. Ma'am, this card has insufficient funds. The bill is $7,538. How much? I thought I had misheard. $7,538, the cashier repeated, pointing to the itemized receipt. You see, 2 bottles of Napa Cabernet were $1,200 alone, plus the Alaskan king crab, the Maine lobster. My hand trembled so much, I could barely hold the card. $7,000? That was half of my yearly pension. What did they eat, Gold? Can you wait a moment? I need to make a phone call, I said, my voice quivering. The cashier nodded. I dialed Kevin's number again. This time, it rang for a long while before he answered. Mom, is the bill paid? Kevin's voice was thick with alcohol. Kevin, there isn't enough money on the card. The bill is over $7,000. What? He seemed to pull the phone away from his ear. I heard him say to someone nearby, My mom says there's not enough money. A burst of laughter followed, and then his voice became clear again. Mom, don't you have your pension? Just use your money to cover it for now. I'll pay you back later. The blood rushed to my head. You deliberately didn't invite me to dinner, just so I would come and pay the bill. Mom, don't say that. Kevin actually laughed. What's the point of you saving up your pension, if not for times like these? What's the big deal about us, your family, having a nice meal? In the background, I clearly heard Jessica's shrill voice say, What's that old hag dawdling for? The call was abruptly disconnected. I stood at the counter, feeling the blood freeze in my veins. The cashier looked at me with pity. Ma'am, maybe you can think of another way. I took a deep breath and pulled my own debit card from my wallet. Use mine. By the time I walked out of the Sterling Cut, the night was deep. $7,538, my personal savings from the last 2 years, gone just like that. The cold wind blew against my flushed face, and suddenly, I was wide awake. This wasn't the first time. Last month, Kevin said his business was having cash flow problems and borrowed $4,000 from me. 6 months ago, Jessica said she wanted to buy a new car and borrowed $7,000. Looking further back, they would come up with some excuse to take money from me almost every few months. And I, a 68-year-old retired teacher, what did I have besides that meager pension? I felt the 2 cards in my pocket, Kevin's and my own. A bold idea suddenly surfaced. Since the night was already ruined, what more could I lose? I turned and walked toward the nearest ATM. I inserted Kevin's credit card and entered his birthday, 090593. I selected check balance. The number on the screen made my eyes widen. Balance, $125,367.42. $125,000? Kevin had over $100,000 in his account, but made me use my pension to pay a $7,000 dinner bill. My hand trembled even more fiercely. I pressed the button to view the transaction history. For the last 3 months, there were large expenditures almost every week. Chanel Boutique, $3,800. Tiffany & Co., $5,200. Premium Birthing Center, $10,000 deposit. A birthing center? Was Jessica pregnant again? That was impossible. She just had their 2nd child last year, and I had paid for all the hospital expenses then. I scrolled further back, my heart growing colder with each entry. In the past year, the spending on this card exceeded $80,000, while nearly all the deposits were transfers from the Eleanor Vance pension fund my money. My legs went weak, and I nearly collapsed in front of the ATM. All these years, most of my pension had gone into their pockets, while I lived frugally, not even daring to buy myself a new dress. The final entry shattered my heart. Today, at 4:50 in the afternoon, just after Kevin called me, a transfer of $50,000 was made. The recipient was Lakeview Realty Development, LLC. They weren't broke. They just didn't want to spend their own money. I took the card and stood on the deserted street corner, and I suddenly started to laugh. The laughter grew louder, eventually turning into sobs. Passersby gave me strange looks, probably thinking I was a crazy old woman. But I wasn't crazy. I was clearer than I had ever been. I wiped away my tears and made a decision. Starting tomorrow, I would uncover the whole truth, and then I would make those two ungrateful snakes pay. As I turned, I saw Kevin's family walking out of the Sterling Cut, laughing and talking. Jessica was carrying a brand new Hermes bag. Kevin was holding our little grandson, and our granddaughter was skipping happily behind them. What a happy family. If only it weren't for me, the old hag. I hid in the shadows, watching them get into the BMW bought with my money and speed away. Then, I slowly walked toward the bus stop. The last bus had already left. I had to walk home. 3 hours later, when I exhaustedly pushed open my front door, the sky was already beginning to lighten. I collapsed onto the sofa, looked at my late husband's smiling portrait on the wall, and finally broke down. "Robert, did you see that?" I whispered. "After you left, look what our son has become." In the photo, Robert looked at me quietly, his eyes gentle and sad. In a daze, I thought I heard him say, "Eleanor, stand up. Live for yourself." I dried my tears and pulled an old notebook from the bottom of the bookshelf. On the first page, I wrote down the date and everything that had happened. Then, I listed all the money Kevin and Jessica had borrowed from me and all their lavish purchases that I could remember. As the sun rose, so did my plan for revenge. Step 1. Go to the bank and find out exactly where my pension has been going. Step 2. Find a lawyer. Step 3. My phone rang suddenly. It was Kevin. "Mom, thanks for last night." His voice was light and cheerful as if nothing had happened. "By the way, it's little Michael's birthday next weekend. You should prepare a generous check. Jessica said she's inviting a lot of friends." I gripped the phone, my voice unnaturally calm. "Of course. I will definitely prepare a great gift." Hanging up, I looked at myself in the mirror. My white hair was a mess, my eyes were swollen and red, but my gaze was firmer than it had been in the last 5 years. The game is on, son. The morning sun streamed through the cracks in the curtains. I rubbed my sore eyes, realizing I had fallen asleep on the sofa. My phone showed 3 missed calls, all from Kevin. I didn't call back. Instead, I got up and took a cold shower to clear my muddled head. The face in the mirror was sallow, the wrinkles under my eyes deeper, but my gaze was clearer than ever. A $7,500 wake-up call was a steep price to pay. I changed into my most presentable clothes and put all my bank cards, passbooks, and my ID into my purse. Today, I was going to the bank to get to the bottom of this. At the bus stop outside my building, a few old neighbors were waiting. Normally, I would have greeted them warmly, but today I just nodded. Mrs. Gable, however, grabbed my arm. "Eleanor, dear, I saw your Kevin taking his wife and kids to the Sterling Cut yesterday. How come they didn't take you?" My heart felt like it had been stabbed. I forced a smile. "Oh, I wasn't feeling well." "Oh, you have to take care of yourself." Mrs. Gable patted my hand. "Your Kevin is so successful. I heard he got another promotion. And that Jessica is so lucky, always posting photos of designer bags on her social media." I mumbled a few replies and hurried onto the bus. Mrs. Gable's words were like daggers twisting in my heart. Yes, everyone thought my son was successful, and my daughter-in-law was living a life of luxury. But no one knew their glamour was built on my life savings. The bank lobby was cool, but I broke out in a cold sweat. I took a number, waited, and finally, it was my turn. "Hello, how can I help you?" the young woman behind the counter asked with a smile. Her name tag read, Maya Patel, trainee. "I'd like to check the detailed statement for my pension account for the last 3 years, I said, handing over my ID and passbook. Maya expertly typed on her computer, but her brow gradually furrowed. "Mrs. Vance, there's something strange about your pension account." My heart pounded. "What's strange?" "Every month, on the 15th, after the pension is deposited, almost the entire amount is withdrawn on the same day. Sometimes it's an ATM withdrawal. Sometimes it's done at the counter." She pointed at the screen. "And in the last 6 months, there have been 3 large loans taken out, using this account as collateral." The world went dark. I gripped the edge of the counter to keep from falling. Loans? I've never taken out any loans. Maya looked around cautiously and lowered her voice. Mrs. Vance, are you certain you didn't authorize these withdrawals and loans yourself? Of course not, my voice trembled. I only withdraw $300 a month for living expenses. The rest I save. As for loans, I know nothing about them. This is serious. Maya's expression became grave. I need to get my supervisor. Please wait a moment. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man came over and introduced himself as the branch manager. He led me into a small office and asked for the details. Mrs. Vance, according to our system records, all these withdrawal and loan applications have your signature. The manager produced a stack of photocopies. Please take a look. Is this your handwriting? I only needed one glance to recognize the clumsy imitation. It was clearly Kevin's handwriting. He'd had messy handwriting since he was a child. I used to joke that it looked like chicken scratch. I never thought his chicken scratch would one day be used to forge my signature. This is not my signature, I said through gritted teeth. The manager and Maya exchanged a look. In that case, we advise you to call the police. This is a clear case of financial fraud, and the amount is substantial. The police? To report my own son? My hands started to shake uncontrollably. Can you first tell me the total amount involved? I asked with difficulty. The manager did some calculations. Over the past 3 years, a total of $48,600 has been withdrawn from your pension. The 3 loans total $60,000, all applied for in your name. Currently, there is still $45,000 outstanding. My ears were ringing, and I could barely hear what he said next. $108,600. I had never even seen that much money in my life. And my son, the son I had worked so hard to raise, had stolen it all from me, piece by piece. Mrs. Vance, are you okay? Maya's concerned voice brought me back to reality. I need some time to think. I stood up, my legs feeling as heavy as lead. The manager handed me a printed copy of the account details. Here is the record of your fund transfers. If you need to file a police report or seek legal help, our bank will fully cooperate. Walking out of the bank, the sun was blazing, but I felt a chilling cold. The thin stack of papers in my bag held the story of my hollowed-out life. I walked aimlessly and found myself in a downtown park. On a bench, I unfolded the statement with trembling hands. The withdrawal dates stabbed at my eyes. On my birthday, Kevin took $3,000. On the anniversary of my husband's death, Jessica took $2,000 to buy a bag. The day before Christmas, a $5,000 transfer was made to the Regal Birthing Center. The most ironic part was that shortly after each withdrawal, there would be a corresponding purchase record. Tiffany & Company, Hermes, high-end beauty salons. The luxury items Jessica flaunted on social media were all bought with my money. My phone suddenly rang. It was Kevin. I took a deep breath and answered. "Mom, why haven't you been answering your phone?" he asked, his tone anxious. "Little Michael has a fever. The hospital wants a $500 deposit. Jessica and I are a little short on cash, can you?" Before, I would have said yes without hesitation. Before, I would have worried about my grandson and rushed to the bank. Before, I was a complete fool. "Kevin," I interrupted him, my voice surprisingly calm. "I just came from the bank." The other end of the line went silent. "Mom, what were you doing at the bank?" His voice was clearly nervous. "Checking my pension account," I said, word by word. $48,600, Kevin, and the $60,000 loans. When were you planning on telling me?" "Mom, listen to me. I can explain." His voice became shrill. "I kept a record of all that money. I'll pay you back. Right now, Michael is sick. The woman who used my money to stay at a luxury birthing center can't even come up with $500 for medical fees?" I sneered. "Kevin, it's time for you and your wife to drop the act." I hung up and turned off my phone, not wanting to hear his voice again. The ginkgo trees by the bench rustled, as if sighing for me. Back home, I pulled out all my financial documents and checked them one by one. The more I looked, the colder my heart became. Kevin had not only used my pension, but he had also secretly linked his expenses to my health insurance and opened multiple credit cards in my name. He was like a termite, slowly eating away at everything I had. In the evening, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Kevin standing outside, his face dark. "Mom, open the door!" "I know you're in there," he yelled, pounding on the door. I didn't make a sound, quietly retreating to the living room. A few minutes later, my phone lit up with a text from Jessica. "Old hag, how dare you hang up on my husband? You want us to ship you off to a nursing home? A nursing home? Threatening me?" I gave a cold laugh and suddenly had an idea. If they wanted to play games, I would play along. I turned my phone back on and replied, "Mom is old and useless now. Don't be angry. I'll go get the money for Michael's medical bills tomorrow." Almost instantly, Kevin called, "Mom, don't listen to Jessica. She just has a short temper. Michael's fever has gone down, so don't you worry. Listen to that, what a dutiful son." I could almost see his fake smile on the other end of the line. "Kevin," I said, my voice deliberately trembling, "Mom has thought about it. Since you've used the money, then just keep it. You're my only son. It'll all be yours eventually. It's just those loans." "Mom, don't you worry about the loans." His voice immediately brightened. "I know people at the bank. It's all been taken care of. Look, you're getting older. Why don't you give me the deed to the house for safekeeping?" So that was it. That was his real goal. My house, the fruit of a lifetime of work for my husband and me. He was coming for it now. The deed, I'll have to look for it. I don't remember where I put it. I pretended to be confused. "Mom, how can you be so careless with something so important?" He grew anxious. "I'll come over tomorrow to help you find it." After hanging up, I immediately dialed another number. My old colleague, Mrs. Davis. Her daughter was a lawyer. It was time to seek professional help. "Eleanor." Mrs. Davis was surprised to hear my voice. "It's been so long." "Sarah," I said, "I need to ask your daughter for some legal advice about a family property dispute." I struggled to say the words. There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Eleanor, is it about Kevin?" So, everyone knew. Everyone except me, his own mother. I gave a bitter laugh and briefly explained the situation. Mrs. Davis immediately promised to connect me with her daughter. "Clara is free tomorrow morning. You can go straight to her firm," Mrs. Davis said. "Eleanor, take care of yourself. Some children just aren't worth it. Not worth it." The words echoed in my mind. Yes, in my 68 years, I had taught countless students, but I had failed to teach my own son. The night was deep, but I couldn't sleep. At my desk, I compiled a detailed list. All the misappropriated funds, the forged documents, the threatening text messages. These were my weapons. Tomorrow, I would meet the lawyer. Tomorrow, the fight back would officially begin. Outside, a sliver of a new moon hung in the sky, cold and bright. My husband's photo, bathed in the moonlight, seemed to watch me quietly, as if to say, "Well done, Eleanor." Clara Hayes's law firm was located in an old office building in the Loop. The elevator was ancient, so I had to climb 5 flights of stairs. My knees ached, but compared to the pain in my heart, it was nothing. Pushing open the frosted glass door, a young woman at the front desk looked up and smiled. "Hello, do you have an appointment?" "I have an appointment with Clara Hayes." "My name is Eleanor Vance." The woman checked the schedule. "Miss Eleanor Vance, Miss Hayes is waiting for you. Please follow me." The office was small but neat and bright. Bookshelves were lined with legal texts, and a few ink-wash paintings hung on the walls. A woman in her early 30s, with short hair and a sharp pantsuit, stood up from behind the desk. Her eyes were sharp yet kind. "Mrs. Vance, hello." She extended a hand. "I'm Clara Hayes. Sarah Davis is my mother." I shook her hand. It was warm and firm. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, I got straight to the point, laying out the documents and bank statements I had organized the night before. Clara read through them carefully, occasionally making notes. When she saw the forged signatures and loan documents, her brow furrowed tightly. "Mrs. Vance, this situation is more serious than I thought," she said, putting the papers down. Your son is implicated in multiple crimes: financial fraud, forgery, embezzlement. The evidence is solid. We could absolutely file criminal charges." Criminal charges? My fingers twisted together unconsciously. To send my own son to prison. Of course, with family disputes, we usually recommend mediation first, Clara said, seeming to notice my hesitation. "What are your goals?" I took a deep breath. "First, I want him to stop taking my property. Second, I want to recover the money he took. Third," I paused, "I want to ensure my house is safe." Clara nodded. "We can start by sending a cease and desist letter, demanding he stop any and all actions related to your assets and return the illegally obtained funds. At the same time, I strongly advise you to do the following immediately." She handed me a list. "Change all your bank account passwords, report your ID as stolen and get a new one. Move the deed and other important documents to a secure location, like a safe deposit box, and gather more evidence." "The deed is the most important thing," Clara emphasized. "The loans taken out in your son's name are secured against your property. If he defaults, the bank has the right to foreclose on your house." My hands started to shake. How could he? That's the only home his father and I ever had. "In the face of money, family ties can sometimes be very fragile," Clara said softly. "Mrs. Vance, you need to be prepared. Cases like this are often accompanied by intense family conflict." I gave a bitter smile. "They've already threatened to send me to a nursing home." Clara's eyes sharpened. "That constitutes elder abuse. Do you have any proof of that?" I took out my phone and showed her the threatening text from Jessica. Clara had me forward it to her immediately. "This can all be used as evidence," she said. "Mrs. Vance, you need to make a decision. Do you want to simply protect what you have left, or do you want to pursue legal action against them?" I looked out the window. The sunlight reflecting off the glass of the building opposite was painfully bright. To report Kevin, to have him sent to jail. I remembered him as a little boy with a high fever, how I held him all night without sleeping. I remembered the proud smiles my husband and I shared when he got into college. I remembered on his wedding day, he promised me, "Mom, I'll take care of you for the rest of your life." "Let's just protect the assets for now," I finally said. "As for legal action, if they stop, I can forgive them." Clara gave me a long, meaningful look. "You're more forgiving than most clients." "All right. I'll draft the letter today. As soon as you get home, follow the list. Contact me immediately if anything happens." Leaving the law firm, I went straight to the police precinct to report my ID stolen. A young officer at the desk asked casually why I was reporting it. "My son used my ID to take out loans," I said calmly. The officer's hands froze on the keyboard. He looked up at me. "Ma'am, that's a serious crime. Do you want to file a report?" I shook my head. "Just the new ID for now." By the time I got the temporary ID, it was already 3 in the afternoon. I rushed to the bank and found Maya, the teller from yesterday. "Mrs. Vance." She was happy to see me. "I was just thinking about contacting you." I explained my purpose, and she immediately helped me change my account passwords and process the stolen ID paperwork. "By the way," she lowered her voice, "I checked the security footage. The person who made the withdrawals and applied for the loans was your son. Sometimes his wife was with him." My heart sank. Is there video?" Maya nodded. "The bank keeps 3 months of footage. I've already backed up the relevant clips. They can be used as evidence if needed." I gratefully squeezed her hand. "Thank you, Maya." "You're welcome," she smiled, then hesitated. "Mrs. Vance, did you know your son was recently inquiring about a home equity loan?" I felt like I had been struck by lightning. "What?" "He was at the bank the day before yesterday, asking about using an elderly parent's property as collateral for a loan. I happened to walk by and heard him." She looked at me with concern. "You need to be careful. The house. They really were going after it." I thanked Maya and immediately took a cab home. The moment I walked in, I smelled stale cigarette smoke. Kevin had been here. I frantically checked every room. The closets and drawers had all been rummaged through. Thankfully, I had hidden the deed long ago in a place only my husband and I knew about. A hidden compartment in the study, behind the old radiator, required removing 3 pieces of the baseboard to access. With trembling hands, I took out the metal box. I opened it and checked. The deed, our marriage certificate, my husband's will, and a few old savings bonds were all safe. I breathed a long sigh of relief, put the box back, and then called Clara to tell her Kevin had already made his move. "Mrs. Vance, this is urgent." Clara's voice was serious. "I recommend you leave your home immediately and stay with a friend or relative for a while. At the same time, we will go to the county recorder's office tomorrow to file a property lien dispute. This will prevent your son from selling or transferring the property without your consent." Leave? I looked around the house I had lived in for 30 years. Every corner held a memory. The photos of Kevin growing up on the wall, my husband's favorite books on the shelf, the spatula I'd used my whole life in the kitchen. How could I bear to leave? I'll think about it," I said vaguely. After hanging up, I sat on the sofa in a daze. The sky darkened, and the room grew dim, but I couldn't be bothered to turn on a light. My phone screen suddenly lit up. It was a text from Kevin. "Mom, I'm coming to pick you up tomorrow morning. We're going to look at a place. There's a really nice retirement community." My hand shook, and the phone fell to the floor. They were serious. They were really going to force me out to take the house. Picking up the phone, I replied, "Okay. Mom has been thinking about a change of scenery." Then, I immediately texted Clara. "I agree with your suggestion. I'll move out first thing in the morning." That night, I packed some necessities and valuables, leaving everything else untouched so as not to arouse suspicion. I carefully wrapped my husband's photograph and placed it in my bag. Just as I was about to turn off the lights, the doorbell rang again. This time, I didn't check the peephole. I just called out, "Who is it?" "Mrs. Vance?" "It's me, Maya." A familiar voice. I opened the door in surprise to see Maya standing there, holding a USB drive. "Mrs. Vance, I'm sorry to bother you so late. This is the backup of the bank's security footage. I thought you might need it." I quickly invited her in and poured her a glass of water. Maya explained that after work, the more she thought about it, the more worried she became that my son might do something more extreme, so she brought the evidence over. "It's too dangerous for you to be alone," she said with concern. "Do you have any relatives you can stay with?" I shook my head. "My old friends are all getting on in years. I don't want to be a burden." Maya hesitated for a moment. "Well, would you want to stay with me for now?" "I have a roommate, but you could stay in the living room." I was moved to tears. This girl, a virtual stranger, was more concerned for me than my own son. "Thank you, Maya. I've already contacted my lawyer. I'm moving to a safe place tomorrow." I patted her hand. "But I will never forget your kindness." After Maya left, I couldn't sleep a wink. At 4 in the morning, I got up and wrote a long letter to Kevin, telling him everything I knew and what I had decided to do. I wouldn't give him the letter now, but maybe one day. Dawn broke. I took one last look around the house full of memories and gently closed the door. In my bag were the deed and all my important documents. In my pocket were my new temporary ID and bank cards. First stop, the county recorder's office. Clara was already waiting for me. "Mrs. Vance, you look terrible. Are you all right?" she asked with concern. I shook my head. "Just didn't sleep well. Let's get started." Filing the property lien dispute was easier than I expected. It took less than an hour. From now on, any transaction regarding my property would be frozen. "Next, where do you plan to stay?" Clara asked. "I have a friend who runs a senior living community. The environment is nice, and the price is reasonable." I told her about Maya's offer. Clara's eyes lit up. "A bank employee? That's even better. She can help you monitor your account activity, but you have to be careful not to get her into trouble." Just then, my phone rang. It was Kevin. "Mom, where are you? I'm downstairs to take you to see the retirement community. Why is no one answering the door?" "Kevin," I said calmly, "something came up. Let's put the retirement community on hold for now. I think I'm quite comfortable where I am." "Mom, how could you do this?" His voice rose sharply. "Jessica and I went to a lot of trouble to set this up. You're making things very difficult for us." "Difficult?" I sneered. "Kevin, I met with a lawyer yesterday. I know everything. The property lien has been filed, so you can forget about it." There was a dead silence on the other end, followed by a roar of fury. "You old hag! You just wait!" The line went dead. Clara looked at me with concern. How did he react? "Furious," I said with a bitter smile. "But it doesn't matter. The gloves are off now." Clara insisted on driving me to Maya's apartment building and reminded me to call the police, or her, immediately if anything happened. I thanked her and rang the doorbell at the address Maya had given me. Maya and her roommate, a girl named Chloe, shared a 2-bedroom apartment. It was modest but clean and tidy. The 2 girls warmly helped me get settled, even buying me new bedding. "Mrs. Vance, you can stay in my room. Chloe and I can share," Maya said. "Absolutely not. The living room is fine," I insisted. "You've already done so much." After settling in, I charged my phone and found more than a dozen missed calls and countless texts from Kevin and Jessica. They ranged from pleading and apologies to threats and insults. I didn't reply to a single one. That evening, when Maya came home from work, she brought shocking news. "Mrs. Vance, your son went to the bank today and tried to report the deed to your house as lost, using your old ID. Thankfully, the system had already been updated with your report, and the teller recognized that he wasn't you." I was shaking with anger. What is he trying to do?" "The bank has already called the police," Maya said. But he ran off before they could get there. Just then, my phone rang again. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Mom, you've got some nerve." Kevin's voice was choked with tears. "The police came to my door." "I'm your son. How could you do this to me?" "Kevin," I fought back my own tears. "You did this to yourself. I was wrong, okay? I was wrong." He suddenly softened. "Mom, I was just confused for a moment. Please forgive me, okay? I promise I'll be a good son from now on. If this were the past, I might have softened. But now, I just felt disgusted. Kevin, my lawyer has prepared all the documents. If you and Jessica stop harassing me and return the money you took, I won't press charges. Otherwise what? You'll send your own son to jail?" His voice turned vicious again. "You old hag, you just wait." He hung up. Maya looked at me with concern. "Mrs. Vance, are you okay?" I shook my head, the tears finally breaking free. What did I do wrong to raise a son like this?" Maya gently hugged me. "It's not your fault, Mrs. Vance. Some people just don't know how to appreciate what they have." That night, lying on a strange sofa, listening to the city's noise outside my window, my heart felt like it was being torn apart. But I knew that from this day forward, I was no longer the helpless old woman they could push around. I am Eleanor Vance, a woman who is finally starting to live for herself. 3 days after I moved in with Maya, things took a sharp, terrifying turn. It was a muggy afternoon. I was helping the girls clean the apartment when the doorbell rang. Chloe went to open it and then cried out in alarm, "Mrs. Vance, the police are here for you." My heart sank. I walked to the door and saw 2 uniformed officers and a woman from the county's Adult Protective Services. "Miss Eleanor Vance?" the older officer asked. "We've received a report from your son stating that you have dementia and have gone missing several times recently. Under the Elder Protection Act, we need to take you for a psychiatric evaluation." I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. "What?" "I'm perfectly fine. This is a complete fabrication by my son." "Ma'am," the social worker said in a gentle but firm tone, "many patients with dementia say the same thing. It's just a routine check. If you're fine, you'll be back home in no time." Maya came out from the kitchen. "What's going on?" "Mrs. Vance is perfectly normal." "And you are?" the officer asked. "I'm a bank teller. I can attest that Mrs. Vance is in perfect mental health," Maya said urgently. "Her son is the liar." "Ma'am, please do not obstruct our work," the officer cut her off. "Miss Vance, please come with us." I looked at their unyielding expressions, then at Maya, who was on the verge of tears, and I understood. This was Kevin's new plan. He knew the legal route was failing, so he resorted to this. "I'll go with you," I said calmly. Then I whispered to Maya, "Call Clara Hayes." Tell her they're taking me for a psychiatric evaluation at Serenity Meadows Hospital. Please hurry, ma'am, the officer interjected. Serenity Meadows was the only hospital in the city with a certified psychiatric evaluation ward. On the way, I tried to explain, but the officers just nodded dismissively, clearly having already made up their minds. The psychiatric ward was in a secluded wing, the hallway thick with the smell of antiseptic. I was led into an examination room where a middle-aged doctor with glasses, Saturday Eleanor Vance, 76 years old, he said, flipping through a form. 68, I corrected him. My son deliberately overstated my age. The doctor looked up at me, then continued writing. Believes she is younger than her actual age, a common symptom of dementia. What? I couldn't believe my ears. Such a snap judgment. The examination that followed was a farce. The doctor asked me a few simple questions. What is today's date? Who is the current mayor? Subtract 7 from 100, 5 consecutive times. I answered every question correctly, but his expression grew more and more solemn. Ma'am, your son says you frequently forget to turn off the stove and get lost when you go out. Is that true? Never. He's lying, I said, agitated. Denial of symptoms is also a sign of dementia, the doctor said to the officer. He then wrote on the diagnosis form, suspected Alzheimer's disease. Recommend inpatient observation. I felt like I had been plunged into an icy abyss. Just like that, with no scans, no detailed consultation, based solely on my son's lies, he had diagnosed me. Doctor, I am perfectly normal. I have a lawyer who can prove my son is framing me. I grabbed his sleeve. Agitated, showing aggressive tendencies, the doctor jotted down another note, then said to a nurse, give her a sedative and send her to the inpatient unit. The last thing I remembered before the needle pierced my arm was thinking, Kevin, you are truly ruthless. When I woke up, I was in a narrow bed, my wrists tied to the bed rails with soft restraints. There were 4 beds in the room. The other 3 elderly residents were either asleep or staring blankly into space. The air was thick with the smell of urine and medicine. New one, the old woman in the next bed suddenly spoke, her voice hoarse. Don't struggle. The more you struggle, the tighter they tie you. I turned to look at her. She was rail-thin, but her eyes were unnervingly bright. I'm not sick, I said, my tongue still numb from the drugs. Who here is? She sneered. My daughter sent me here, all because I wouldn't let her sell my house. My heart lurched. You were framed by your family too? Plenty of us, the old woman whispered. At least half the people on this floor are sane. It's good business for the facility. The family pays. The doctor writes a diagnosis. It was then I realized what a horrifying black market I had fallen into. Children who wanted to get rid of their parents, a facility that wanted to make money, and doctors who took bribes to write fake diagnoses. And we, the elderly, were stripped of our freedom and dignity. My name is Beatrice Gallo, the old woman said. What's yours? Eleanor Vance. I tried to move my wrists. How long do they keep you tied up? They'll untie you before dinner so you can use the bathroom and eat. Then they tie you up again before bed, Beatrice said. They don't tie you during the day, but the doors are locked. There's no escape. Just then, the door opened, and a portly orderly pushed in a medicine cart. Bed 305. The new one. Time for your meds. He handed me 2 white pills and a cup of water. Remembering what Beatrice had said, I pretended to put the pills in my mouth but tucked them under my tongue. The orderly roughly checked my mouth, found nothing, and moved on. Once he was gone, I spat the pills out and hid them under my pillow. Beatrice gave me an approving nod. You learn fast. In the afternoon, I was taken to a large, empty activity room. A dozen or so residents sat in a circle, some staring blankly, others mumbling to themselves. Orderlies stood guard at the door, occasionally yelling at anyone who didn't comply. I noticed a white-haired old man in the corner, secretly writing something on a piece of paper. When he saw me looking, he quickly hid it. That's Arthur Finch, Beatrice whispered. Used to be a high school teacher. His son sent him here. He writes letters of complaint every day, but they never get mailed. After the activity was dinner, watery oatmeal and pickles. I barely managed a few bites. Back in the room, I discovered the pills under my pillow were gone. My heart sank. Just then, Beatrice quietly slipped me a note. Orderly did a room check. I hid them for you in the toilet tank. I gratefully squeezed her hand. This woman, whom I had known for less than a day, had become my only ally. That evening, as promised, an orderly untied me to use the washroom. In the bathroom, I checked the toilet tank and found the pills, wrapped in a small plastic bag. Next to them was another small note. Don't take their medicine. It'll make you really go crazy. A. So, Mr. Finch was also secretly helping. A warmth spread through my chest. In this terrible place, at least there were still sane people. Before bed, the orderly came to tie my hands again. This time I didn't resist. After he left, Beatrice whispered, "Tomorrow, I'll teach you how to cheek your pills and pretend to be confused. We have to survive until we can get out." In the darkness, listening to the breathing and murmurs of the other residents, tears streamed silently down my face. Kevin and Jessica, could you really live with yourselves, leaving me to spend the rest of my days in a place like this? Suddenly, I remembered my phone. They had confiscated my purse, but my phone was still in my pants pocket. I carefully twisted my body, trying to reach it. The restraints limited my movement, but after several minutes of effort, my fingertips finally brushed against it. It was off, with about half the battery left. I didn't dare turn it on, but it was a sliver of hope. The next morning at breakfast, I deliberately spilled oatmeal on myself, acting clumsy. The orderly cursed at me as he changed my clothes, but the suspicion in his eyes lessened. I was starting to be categorized as one of the confused ones. During activity time, I subtly moved next to Arthur. Pretending to be folding paper, he whispered, "You were framed." I nodded. "My son wants my house." "A classic," he sneered. "I've been watching you. Your eyes are too clear. You have to learn to act confused." He taught me how to gather evidence without raising suspicion. Memorize the orderly's schedules, note the blind spots in the surveillance cameras, document illegal medication and abuse. Most importantly, Arthur said, find a trustworthy family member or visitor to get a message out for us. Do you have someone like that? I thought of Maya and Clara. They must be frantically looking for me. Yes, but they don't know I'm here, I whispered. Arthur's eyes lit up. Next Wednesday is family visiting day. You have to find a way to contact them. Back in the room, I shared the plan with Beatrice. She was thrilled. I know one of the cleaning ladies. She can pass a note for you. And just like that, the three of us formed a small resistance alliance. Over the next few days, I acted more and more confused on the surface, while secretly documenting every violation at the facility. Residents being tied to their beds for over 12 hours, being forced to take expired medication, orderlies hitting those who disobeyed. The most horrifying discovery was a special arrangement between the facility and certain families. For an extra fee, the facility would provide special care, which was actually systematic abuse to troublesome residents until they became completely docile. On Wednesday morning, I got up early and sewed the note, filled with everything I had documented, into the lining of my bra. The cleaning lady Beatrice knew was in her 50s. She saw what we were doing and gave a silent nod. "Don't worry," she whispered. "My daughter works for a newspaper. This needs to be exposed." During visiting hours, the activity room was transformed. It was clean and welcoming, the residents were dressed in their best clothes, and the orderlies were all smiles. I sat in a corner, scanning every person who walked in, praying for a familiar face. Suddenly, an unexpected figure appeared at the door. Maya. She was in casual clothes, pretending to be a family member of another resident. Our eyes met across the room. A flash of shock and relief crossed her face before she composed herself and slowly walked toward me. "Grandma," she said, kneeling in front of me and taking my hands as if we were close. "I've come to see you." I squeezed her hand and whispered, "Bra pocket." Maya understood. Pretending to fix my collar, her hand quickly retrieved the note. An orderly walked over to check. She immediately said loudly, "Grandma, you're looking so well. We all miss you so much." The orderly, satisfied, walked away. Before leaving, Maya winked at me and mouthed the words, "Hang in there." After she left, my heart pounded for a long time. The note contained not only the evidence I had collected, but also a crucial piece of information. Kevin had already filed a petition with the court to have me declared legally incompetent. If it passed, he would have complete control over all my assets. I had to stop him. But what could I do from inside this prison? That evening, Arthur secretly told me some astounding news. I heard that officials from the Department of Health are coming for an inspection next week. This might be our only chance. The flame of hope was reignited. Beatrice and I began to prepare more detailed complaint materials. Arthur even drew a floor plan of the facility, marking all the cameras and guard stations. If we can just talk to the officials face to face. Arthur's eyes gleamed. We could expose everything. Beatrice was just as excited. However, the day before the inspection, disaster struck. After dinner, an orderly suddenly increased my medication. Bed 305. New prescription from the doctor. To help you sleep. I instinctively resisted. I don't need it. It's not up to you. The orderly brutally pinched my nose and forced the pills down my throat. That night, I slept like the dead, missing the inspection entirely. When I woke up, I was met by Beatrice's swollen eyes and Arthur's grim face. The inspection was a sham, Beatrice said, crying. Someone tipped them off. The facility was prepared. All the problem residents were locked in their rooms. Our last hope was gone. I lay on the narrow bed, staring at a crack in the ceiling, my heart a dead weight. Was I destined to live out my final years in this hell on earth? Could Kevin and Jessica really get away with everything? No. I gritted my teeth. As long as I had breath in my body, I would keep fighting. It took 3 days after being drugged for my head to clear completely. Beatrice told me that after the failed inspection, Arthur's medication was also increased. Now he spent his days in a daze. They know we were planning something, Beatrice whispered. We can't even get notes out anymore. The friendly cleaning lady was transferred and replaced by a brutish man who watches us like a hawk. Activity time was canceled, the food got worse, and the orderlies became even more hostile. The entire facility was on high alert. Beatrice and I were forced to halt our resistance, acting as numb and compliant as the other residents. But in secret, we continued to watch, to remember, to wait. I memorized the name and shift of every orderly, the pattern of medication distribution, and even the fact that the director left for 2 hours every Wednesday afternoon for business meetings. Don't lose hope, Beatrice whispered to me in the bathroom. An opportunity will come. And sometimes, opportunity arrives in the most unexpected way. It was a normal Thursday morning. We were in the activity room watching television, though most were just staring at the flickering screen. Suddenly, the director walked in with several people. One of them, an elderly woman in a wheelchair, was particularly striking. "This is our new resident, Dr. Reed," the director announced with a fawning smile. "A retired professor from the University of Chicago. Everyone, please make her feel welcome." I studied our new roommate. She was in her 70s, with silver hair impeccably styled. Though in a wheelchair, her eyes were as sharp as a hawk's. To my surprise, she was assigned to the empty bed in our room. Dr. Reed's arrival was like a stone dropped into stagnant water. From day one, she behaved differently from everyone else. She refused to take unidentified pills, insisted on choosing her own meals, and even demanded to see the facility's operating license and the credentials of the medical staff. "I am here for convalescence, not incarceration," she told an orderly, her voice quiet but filled with authority. "If you try to force medicate me again, I will sue you for elder abuse." The staff were clearly intimidated and treated her with cautious respect. The director himself often came by to check on her, calling her Dr. Reed. "Who is this old lady?" Beatrice asked curiously. I shook my head, but my intuition told me Dr. Reed was someone special. Perhaps she could be our new hope. The next morning at breakfast, I deliberately sat next to her. Pretending to help her with her utensils, I whispered, "Were you sent here by your family?" She gave me a sharp look. "I came here myself. My arthritis flared up, and I need care. My children are overseas." Then she lowered her voice. "And you? You don't look confused to me." We had made contact. After a few days of careful probing, I confirmed that Dr. Reed was indeed there voluntarily and was exceptionally sharp. More importantly, She had a smartphone her children had bought for her, with full internet access. "Dr. Reed," I said one afternoon, gathering my courage, "could I ask for your help?" It was just the three of us in the room, Beatrice, Dr. Reed, and me. An orderly had just done his rounds. I briefly told her my story and how we had failed to get our evidence out. Dr. Reed listened, then said after a moment of silence, "I knew there was something wrong with this place. Just the other day, I saw an orderly strike one of the dementia patients." "Can you help us get a message out?" Beatrice asked urgently. "My daughter has no idea what I'm going through in here." "Doctor." Reed took out her phone. "Tell me who to contact." I gave her Clara's and Maya's numbers. Beatrice gave her daughter's work information. Dr. Reed noted it down and promised to contact them that night. "But," she warned, "you two need to be careful. I heard a major corporation is set to acquire this facility next month. They're in the process of cleaning house." "What?" Beatrice and I looked at each other. "Cleaning house? What does that mean?" Dr. Reed shook her head. "I don't know the specifics, but several troublesome residents have recently been transferred or have passed away." A chill ran down my spine. Kevin and Jessica sending me here. Was it a coincidence? Or something more sinister? The next day, Dr. Reed told me she had reached Clara and Maya. "That young friend of yours from the bank was frantic. She said they've been searching for you for 2 weeks," Dr. Reed said. "She's going to pretend to be my niece and visit tomorrow to get the evidence." Beatrice and I were so emotional we nearly cried. That night, we stayed up late compiling everything we had. Records of illegal medication, videos of abuse secretly filmed on Dr. Reed's phone, and evidence of financial irregularities. The following day, Maya arrived as planned. Seeing how much weight I'd lost, her eyes immediately reddened, but she held back her tears. "Mrs. Vance," she gripped my hand, her voice choked. I secretly slipped the USB drive into her purse. "Be careful," I whispered. "There are cameras everywhere." Maya nodded, then said loudly, "Aunt Evelyn, you're looking great. I'll come see you again soon." After she left, Beatrice and I were both ecstatic and terrified. The evidence was out, but what would happen next? How would the facility react? Would we face retaliation? 3 days later, on a Saturday afternoon, the facility was thrown into chaos. The director ran around with a grim face, and the orderlies were called into an emergency meeting. Dr. Reed secretly informed us. Someone posted an anonymous tip online about the abuse here. Reporters and officials from the Department of Health are coming for a surprise inspection tomorrow. Beatrice and I wept with joy. It was Maya. She did it. That night, the facility put on an absurd show. The old, worn-out bedding was replaced with new sets. Expired drugs were hastily swapped out, and they even brought in a barber to give the residents haircuts. The director personally inspected every corner, threatening us to keep our mouths shut. "If anyone dares to speak out of turn tomorrow," one orderly snarled, "you'll get a double dose of meds tonight." But this time, they miscalculated. Dr. Reed had been feeding Maya real-time updates via her phone. Better yet, Arthur, despite being groggy from the medication, had managed to write a detailed letter of complaint upon hearing the news, which he hid in the sole of his shoe. The next day, the inspection team arrived. It wasn't just health officials, there were police officers and television reporters. Just as the facility's carefully staged performance began, Dr. Reed suddenly stood up from her wheelchair. "Sirs, I have a report to make." The room erupted. The director tried to stop her, but it was too late. Dr. Reed played the videos from her phone. Arthur handed over his letter, and Beatrice and I led the inspectors to see the real living conditions and the drug storage room. That evening, the facility was ordered to shut down pending an investigation. The director and several orderlies were taken into police custody. The rest of us were temporarily relocated to a proper senior living community nearby. And there, in the lobby of the new facility, I saw them, Clara and Maya, rushing towards me. "Mrs. Vance." Maya threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face. "You've lost so much weight." Clara, however, was all business. "Mrs. Vance, the competency hearing your son filed for is in 2 days. We need to prepare our case immediately." It turned out that while I was imprisoned, Kevin had nearly completed the legal process to have full control of my assets. "Do we have a chance?" I asked, worried. Clara smiled confidently. "We do now. The evidence of abuse from the facility, plus the willingness of Dr. Reed and the other residents to testify for you, is more than enough to prove your son was framing you." The next 24 hours were a whirlwind. Clara took me for a proper psychiatric evaluation, which concluded I was fully competent to manage my own affairs. Maya organized all the evidence, including the dark secrets of the facility and the bank records of Kevin's forgeries. Dr. Reed even contacted a friend in the legal community to offer expert support. On the day of the hearing, I wore the professional suit Clara brought for me, my white hair neatly coiffed. I walked into the courthouse with my back straight. In the gallery sat Maya, Dr. Reed, Beatrice, and Arthur, my entire resistance alliance. At the defendant's table, Kevin and Jessica's faces were ashen. Seeing me walk in, looking composed and strong, their expressions shifted from shock to fear, and finally to despair. The judge reviewed the evidence from both sides, paying close attention to the stark contrast between the facility doctor's report and the one from the Certified Evaluation Center. When Dr. Reed took the stand as an expert witness, describing how facilities collude with families to imprison the elderly, a wave of shock went through the courtroom. Based on the evidence presented, the judge finally announced, "This court denies the petitioner's request to declare the respondent incompetent." On the contrary, this court notes the serious allegations of elder abuse and financial embezzlement against the petitioner and recommends the district attorney's office open an investigation. The courtroom erupted in applause. Kevin slumped in his chair, while Jessica shrieked hysterically, "You old hag, I hope you rot in hell," before being escorted out by the bailiffs. Walking out of the courthouse, the sunlight was bright and cleansing. Clara told me that not only had Kevin and Jessica lost their bid for control, but they would now face a criminal investigation. "Mrs. Vance, you won," Maya said, linking her arm through mine, her eyes filled with tears. I shook my head. "No, we won." Yes, we had. My resistance alliance. Beatrice was finally reunited with her daughter. Arthur's son was under investigation, and he was likely to get his house back. Dr. Reed decided to form an advocacy group for the rights of the elderly. And I, with the help of Maya and Clara, would continue the fight to recover my stolen assets. But in that moment, all I wanted was to enjoy this hard-won freedom. I took a deep breath of fresh air and looked up at the blue sky. "Robert," I thought, "did you see? I didn't give up. And I will keep fighting until I get back everything that belongs to us." 3 days after the victory in court, I returned home. Pushing open the familiar door, I was hit by a musty smell. Clearly, no one had been here. A thin layer of dust covered the furniture, and the food in the refrigerator had long since spoiled. I put down my bag and immediately checked the secret compartment behind the radiator. The metal box was still there. The deed, savings bonds, and my husband's will were all safe. I let out a long sigh of relief, clutching the box to my chest as I sat on the sofa, tears streaming down my face. It was the first time since my husband passed that I truly felt safe. The past few months had been a nightmare, and now I was finally awake. The ringing of my phone broke my thoughts. It was Clara. "Mrs. Vance, I have good news. The court has officially opened a criminal investigation into your son and daughter-in-law. The police will need you to come in and give a detailed statement. Of course, I'm available anytime," I said, drying my tears. Also, Clara's voice turned serious. "Your son's assets have been frozen, including the BMW and several bank accounts. However, bank records show that he and Jessica transferred a large sum of money recently. We need to trace where it went." My heart tightened. "Can we get it back?" "It will be difficult, but we'll do everything we can." Clara paused. "Mrs. Vance, you need to prepare yourself. This case might take a long time, and it will be painful." I knew what she meant. To personally send your own son to prison, what mother wouldn't be in pain? But then I thought of those days in the care facility, of being tied to the bed and force-fed pills, and my heart hardened. "I'm not afraid," I said. "Let justice be done." After hanging up, I began to deep clean the house, as if scrubbing away all the ugly memories. While cleaning Kevin's old room, I found a crumpled piece of paper, a draft of a contract from a real estate company, dated the day before I was sent to the facility. The contract showed that Kevin had already reached an agreement with Lakeview Realty to sell my house for 30% below market value, on the condition that the original occupant, me, would not object. In return, he would receive a small condo and $10,000 in cash. My hand trembled so much I could barely hold the paper. It was all premeditated. They didn't just want my money, they wanted the home my husband and I had built over a lifetime. I immediately took a picture and sent it to Clara. Less than 10 minutes later, she called back. "Mrs. Vance, this contract is a smoking gun. It's direct proof of conspiracy to commit fraud between your son and this real estate company. I've already contacted the Economic Crimes Unit. They will investigate this company. So my house is safe?" "Absolutely," Clara said confidently. "No one would dare touch your property now." That afternoon, Maya came to visit, carrying bags of groceries, saying she wanted to help me get my strength back. Watching her bustle around the kitchen, my heart felt warm. This girl, who was no blood relation, was more thoughtful than my own son. "Maya, your parents must be so proud of you," I said during dinner. She smiled. "My parents are just regular working-class people, but they taught me to be a good person." She hesitated. "Mrs. Vance, do you hate your son?" I put down my fork and was silent for a long time. I did. But now, it's more sadness than hate. I'm sad that he became this person, and sad that I failed to teach him better. Maya took my hand. "It's not your fault. Everyone has to be responsible for their own choices." The next day, I went to the police station to give my statement. The detective, a middle-aged man named Officer Miller, was kind but thorough in his questioning. When I described my experience at the care facility, his brow furrowed, and he called in a colleague from the Elder Abuse Unit, Mrs. Vance, "Your situation is more serious than we thought," Officer Miller said. "Your son and daughter-in-law are suspected of multiple crimes, including elder abuse, financial fraud, and forgery. The case against the care facility is also ongoing. Several people have already been arrested." "Will they go to prison?" I asked quietly. "It's very likely," he said bluntly. "You should be prepared for that." Walking out of the station, the sunlight was blinding. I put on my reading glasses and suddenly saw a familiar figure across the street, Kevin. He had lost weight, was unshaven, and was staring at me with a dark expression. Our eyes met. He made a throat-slitting gesture with his finger, then turned and walked away. My heart pounded, and my legs went weak. He hated me. My own son hated me. That realization was more painful than any physical harm. When I got home, I immediately had the locks changed and installed a security chain and a peephole camera. Clara was right. I had to protect myself. That night, I tossed and turned. Kevin's hateful glare burned into my mind. At 3 a.m, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Mom," Kevin's voice was hoarse. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," I said, trying to sound calm. "Just 10 minutes. Face to face, his tone softened. "Mom, I know I was wrong. I want to apologize." I bit my lip, torn. My mind told me not to trust him, but a mother's instinct made my heart soften. "Tomorrow morning. The bench by the fountain in Millennium Park. A public place," I finally said. "Just 10 minutes. The next day, I went to the park, but I was prepared. I had a small audio recorder in my purse, my phone's emergency contact was set, and I chose a busy, visible spot. Kevin was 10 minutes late and looked terrible. He sat down next to me. His first words were, "Mom, I've hit rock bottom." The police had frozen his accounts. Jessica had taken the kids and gone back to her parents. His company, citing his ruined reputation, was about to fire him. He rambled on, but the message was clear. His life was a mess, and it was all my fault. "If you're here to blame me, then this conversation is over," I said, standing up. "Wait." He grabbed my arm. "Mom, please drop the charges. If you drop the charges, Jessica will come back, and my company will keep me." I couldn't believe my ears. "Drop the charges? Kevin, do you have any idea what you've done?" You locked me in that hellhole, you drugged me, you tied me down. That wasn't my idea. He immediately deflected. It was Jessica. It was all her idea. She said you were old and confused and needed special care. Enough. I cut him off sharply. You're still lying. The bank records show you forged my signature. You're the one who stole my pension. His face changed. You know everything. I know everything, I said coldly, including your deal with the real estate company. Kevin's expression twisted from remorse to rage. You old hag. You're just trying to ruin me, aren't you? He suddenly grabbed my wrist. Well, it's not that easy. I have ways of dealing with you. Let go, I struggled. There are cameras here. The police will be here in a minute. He instantly released me, looking around frantically. I took the opportunity to step back and pulled the recorder from my purse. I recorded everything you just said, Kevin. You brought this on yourself. His face went pale. Mom, I was wrong. I was just upset. Goodbye, Kevin. I turned and walked away without looking back. When I got home, I immediately sent the recording to Clara. She was ecstatic. This is perfect. He admitted on tape that he knew about the abuse and he threatened you. It's the most direct evidence we could ask for. I felt no sense of victory, only a profound sadness. The little boy who used to cuddle in my arms had become a monster. 3 days later, the police officially arrested Kevin. On the same day, Jessica was brought in for questioning. According to Clara, Jessica initially blamed everything on Kevin, but when presented with the bank records and testimony from the care facility, she broke down and admitted her involvement. The funniest part is, Clara said on the phone, they're pointing fingers at each other, each claiming it was the other's idea. Jessica even said she sent you to the facility because you were too difficult to handle. I gave a bitter laugh. She always saw me as a nuisance. Mrs. Vance, now we move on to asset recovery. Clara's tone shifted. Your son's assets are frozen, but our records show they transferred a lot of money to Jessica's family. That part will be very hard to get back. Whatever you can recover is fine. I sighed. The important thing is to make sure they can't hurt me or any other elderly person ever again. Clara was quiet for a moment. You know, you're much stronger than I imagined. Most elderly parents in this situation would have softened and dropped the charges by now. I won't, I said firmly. Not just for myself, but for all the other seniors who are still suffering in places like that. A week later, the district attorney's office formally indicted Kevin and Jessica. At the same time, there was a new development in the care facility case. The director and several key staff members were arrested, and a dozen residents were reunited with their families, including Beatrice and Arthur. Beatrice's daughter came to thank me personally, crying as she said she had no idea what her mother had endured. Arthur was picked up by his nephew. Before he left, he slipped me a note with his new address and phone number. Stay in touch. Our fight isn't over. He was right. Our fight wasn't over. My case had only exposed the tip of the iceberg of the elder rights crisis. With that in mind, I called Dr. Reed. Dr. Reed, that advocacy group for the elderly you mentioned, I'd like to join. Dr. Reed was delighted. Excellent. We need someone with your real-world experience. We have a planning meeting this weekend. You must come. That weekend, for the first time, I attended a meeting as an elder rights advocate. There were retired judges, lawyers, social workers, and several other seniors with stories like mine. Dr. Reed, as the founder, introduced me and told everyone my story, which was met with a round of applause. At the meeting, we officially established the Silver Sentinel Alliance, with the mission of helping elderly victims of abuse and fraud. I was elected vice president, in charge of the victim support group. Eleanor, your experience will inspire so many others to stand up, Doctor. Reed said, squeezing my hand. I nodded, a long-forgotten sense of purpose filling my heart. Perhaps all the suffering I endured could become a source of strength for others. On the way home, I took a detour to the cemetery. Placing a bouquet of white lilies on my husband's grave, I whispered, Robert, I'm starting a new life. You'd be proud of me, right? The wind rustled the leaves, as if in reply. The night before the trial, I tossed and turned, only falling into a fitful sleep near dawn. My dreams were filled with images of Kevin as a child. The first time he said mama, his silhouette as he walked to school with his backpack, his beaming smile when he got his college acceptance letter. I woke up to a tear-soaked pillow just as the sky was beginning to lighten. I washed my face and changed into the dark blue suit Clara had picked out for me, dignified and strong. The woman in the mirror had white hair pulled back in a neat bun and wrinkles that mapped a long life, but her eyes were more determined than ever. Today, I would face the son I once cherished with my life, and I would oppose him in a court of law. Maya arrived early to accompany me. On the way, she held my hand, silently giving me strength. "Mrs. Vance, no matter the outcome, you are already the victor," she said, "because you dared to fight back against injustice." A crowd of reporters was already gathered at the courthouse entrance. Ever since the care facility scandal broke, my case had become a major news story, dubbed by some as the landmark case for elder rights in America. Security, check-in, waiting. Finally, we were led into courtroom number 3. The gallery was packed. I saw Dr. Reed, Beatrice's daughter, Arthur's nephew, and even a few of my old comrades from the facility. At the defendant's table sat Kevin and Jessica, each with a court-appointed lawyer. Kevin wore an ill-fitting suit, his hair a mess, his eyes darting around nervously. Jessica was heavily made up, but it couldn't hide the bitterness on her face. When she saw me, she shot me a hateful glare, while Kevin lowered his head, unable to meet my gaze. "All rise," the bailiff called out. The judge, a woman in her 50s with a stern face and sharp eyes, entered. After she declared the court in session, the prosecutor began his opening statement, listing Kevin and Jessica's crimes: abuse of a vulnerable adult, embezzlement, forgery of official documents. Each charge was like a knife in my heart. As a mother, hearing your own son accused of such things is an indescribable pain. But I had to be strong. When it was Clara's turn, she presented the facts with clear logic and overwhelming evidence. The bank statements, the forged signatures, the abuse records from the facility, and most damning of all, the audio recording from the park. When Kevin's furious voice echoed through the courtroom, "You old hag, you're just trying to ruin me, aren't you? I have ways of dealing with you," a gasp went through the gallery. When the recording finished, the court was silent. I saw Kevin's shoulders slump in defeat, and Jessica's face turned ashen. "Your Honor," Clara concluded, "this case is not just a family dispute. It reflects a grim reality in our society about the protection of our elders. The defendants exploited the bonds of love and trust to inflict financial and personal harm upon an elderly mother. Their actions were heinous, and the societal impact is profound. We ask the court to deliver a just punishment and order the full restitution of the stolen assets." Next came the defense. Kevin's lawyer tried to frame it as a family misunderstanding, a momentary lapse in judgment. Jessica's lawyer tried to shift all the blame to Kevin, painting her as a mere accomplice. The judge repeatedly cut them off, demanding they stick to the facts. When Jessica's lawyer claimed she had always had a wonderful relationship with her mother-in-law, the judge played the recording of Jessica's threatening phone call. "Old hag, how dare you hang up on my husband? You want us to ship you off to a nursing home?" The gallery erupted again. Jessica's face went from white to red, her arrogant facade crumbling. During the final statements, the judge asked if we had anything else to say. Kevin suddenly stood up, his voice choked. "Mom, I was wrong. Please forgive me." I looked at him, the little boy who used to cuddle in my arms, now a criminal. Tears blurred my vision, but I did not waver. "Your Honor," I stood, my voice steady. "I do not ask for a harsh sentence. I only ask for justice. I hope my son can truly understand his mistakes and reform himself. As for the property, it was my husband's and my life savings. I must have it back." The judge called for a recess while the jury deliberated. That hour was the longest 60 minutes of my life. Maya held my hand, Clara comforted me, and Dr. Reed spoke to reporters about the importance of elder rights. Finally, the judge returned. "All rise." The courtroom fell silent. This court finds the defendants, Kevin Vance and Jessica Vance, guilty of abuse of a vulnerable adult, embezzlement, and forgery. The facts are clear, the evidence undeniable. Given the severity of the case and its profound societal impact, the sentence is as follows. Defendant Kevin Vance is sentenced to 3 years in prison, with the sentence suspended pending 4 years of probation. Defendant Jessica Vance is sentenced to 2 years in prison, with the sentence suspended pending 3 years of probation. The defendants are ordered to make full restitution to the plaintiff, Eleanor Vance, in the amount of $108,600 within 10 days of this judgment, and to pay an additional $10,000 in punitive damages. I barely heard the rest. 3 years and 2 years. Even suspended, it meant a criminal record they could never erase. And the restitution, nearly $120,000, would wipe out almost everything they owned. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Clara shielded me, but I gently pushed past her and faced the cameras. Today is not just a victory for me, I said. It is a victory for all elderly people who have been mistreated. I want to tell everyone in a similar situation. Do not be silent, do not be afraid. The law will protect us. As for my son and daughter-in-law, I took a deep breath. I forgive them for the personal pain they caused me, but I will not forgive their disregard for the law. I hope this lesson will help them truly change. Later, a major newspaper ran my quote under a headline like, "A great mother's grace and strength," but only I knew how much it hurt to say the word forgive. After the verdict, Kevin and Jessica were forced to sell the BMW and some jewelry to make the first restitution payment. Their marriage ended. Jessica filed for divorce 3 days after the trial and moved back in with her parents with the children. Kevin moved into a rented room on the outskirts of the city and, I heard, spent his days drinking. I didn't visit him. Some wounds need time. My life, however, found a new rhythm. The work at the Silver Sentinel Alliance grew busier. We received calls for help from all over the country. Dr. Reed and I, along with other volunteers, took shifts providing legal advice and emotional support. Maya practically became my adopted daughter, visiting every week to help with errands. With her help, I learned to use a smartphone and a computer, even starting a social media page to share knowledge about elder rights. One rainy afternoon, I was organizing case files at the Alliance when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw an unexpected figure, Kevin. He was so thin I barely recognized him, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, holding a plastic grocery bag. I hesitated, then opened the door, leaving the security chain on. "Mom," his voice was hoarse. "Can I come in?" "What is it?" I asked, staying cautious. I've come to pay you back." He held up the bag. "This is the last 10,000. I've paid it all off." I unlatched the chain and let him in, but I left the door ajar. Kevin stood awkwardly in the living room, not daring to sit. I took the money, counted it in front of him, and put it away. "Is there anything else?" I asked. He suddenly dropped to his knees, sobbing. "Mom, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Jessica left me, the company fired me, my friends avoid me. I have nothing left." I fought the urge to help him up. "Kevin, this is the path you chose." I know. He clutched at my clothes. "Mom, can you forgive me?" "I promise I'll turn my life around." Looking at his pathetic state, my heart felt torn in two. One half a mother's pity, the other a victim's anger. "Kevin," I finally said, "I can forgive you, but I won't forget. As for trust, that will take time." He looked up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Mom, thank you. You should go now," I interrupted. "When you've truly changed, then you can come find me." After Kevin left, I sat in front of my husband's portrait and wept. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean things go back to how they were. Some cracks can never be fully mended, but life goes on. The next day, I went to the Alliance as usual. Dr. Reed told me our work had caught the attention of the National Council on Aging, and we might be invited to a symposium on elder rights protection. "Eleanor, you've become a celebrity," she laughed. I shook my head. "I don't want to be a celebrity. I just want to help more people like me." That evening, Maya came over for dinner, excitedly telling me the bank was giving her an award for her civic mindedness, and she might get promoted early. It's all because of you, Mrs. Vance. Her eyes sparkled. I smiled and put a piece of fish on her plate. Silly girl, it's because you have a good heart. Before bed, I checked the locks on the doors and windows, a habit from my time in the facility. Lying in bed, I thought back on the whirlwind of the past half year. From being deceived by my son, to being locked away, to fighting back and winning, and now to this new life, it felt like a dream. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Kevin. Mom, I found a job. Warehouse manager at a friend's factory. The pay isn't great, but I'm going to work hard. Good night. The simple words made my eyes well up. It was the first time he'd said good night to me since he was a teenager. I replied, work hard. Take care of yourself. Putting the phone down, I looked out at the starry sky. Robert, did you see? Our son? Maybe there's hope for him yet. And I'm starting a life that is truly my own. 3 months after the Silver Sentinel Alliance was founded, we moved from Dr. Reed's living room into 2 proper offices provided by the city. Our membership grew from 12 to over 100, including 6 lawyers, 2 retired judges, and 4 counselors. I was officially the vice president, primarily responsible for the Property Fraud Prevention Project. This initiative was born from my own experience and that of several other members. The problem of children or relatives cheating seniors out of their homes was growing. Eleanor, look at this case. Dr. Reed handed me a file. An 80-year-old man, Mr. Henderson, was tricked by his grandson into signing over his house and is now homeless. I read the details, a familiar ache in my heart. Mr. Henderson's story was so similar to mine. His only grandson moved him in, promising to take care of him, then secretly had him sign transfer on death deeds. By the time the old man found out, the grandson had already taken out a massive reverse mortgage against the property. Can we get his house back? I asked our legal counsel. He shook his head. The paperwork is all legal. It's very difficult to overturn. What we can do now is help him sue the grandson for elder support. Cases like this kept pouring in. It felt like every week another senior came to us for help. Some had their deeds stolen by their children. Others were conned into signing predatory contracts, and some were even kicked out of their homes by their own siblings. We have to prevent this at the source, I said at a meeting. We should partner with community centers to give legal literacy workshops for seniors, teach them how to protect their property. Dr. Reed immediately agreed. Brilliant idea. Eleanor, with your personal experience, you're the perfect person to lead it. And so, the Home Guard project was launched. A few volunteers and I began visiting community centers across the city, giving small workshops, teaching seniors about common real estate scams and basic preventative measures. Keep your deed in a safe deposit box, not at home. Don't give it to your children lightly. Before you sign anything, always consult a lawyer or a notary. And don't believe any investment that promises high returns in exchange for your home. I repeated these points over and over. Seeing the elderly attendees taking careful notes was both gratifying and heartbreaking. After the workshops, many would approach me privately to share their stories. Their situations were all different, but the core was the same: betrayal by those they trusted most. My son said the deed was safer with him. The next thing I knew, he'd used it as collateral for a business loan. My daughter tricked me into signing what she called a care agreement. I later found out it was a quitclaim deed. My own brother sold my house while I was in the hospital. Listening to these tragic tales only strengthened my resolve. If someone had warned me back then, maybe I wouldn't have almost lost my own home. Maya often came by to help me organize case files. At her suggestion, we started building a database of elder property fraud cases, documenting the specifics of each scam and its resolution to serve as a reference for future advocacy. Mrs. Vance, look at this. One day, Maya pointed excitedly at her computer screen. Lakeview Realty, the company that conspired with your son, they've been reported again. I leaned in to look. It was a complaint on the Better Business Bureau website. Lakeview Realty was accused of deceiving multiple seniors by promising a high price for their homes, only to trick them into signing lowball sales contracts, then flipping the properties for a huge profit. Isn't that exactly what they tried to do to me? I said, shocked. Maya nodded. I did some digging. This company exclusively targets seniors' homes. They have a whole script: convince the owner the house isn't worth much, promise them a spot in a retirement community, then get them to sign. We have to expose them, I said, slamming my hand on the table. Through Dr. Reed's connections, we got in touch with a reporter from the Chicago Tribune. After a 2-week undercover investigation, a bombshell article was published. Predatory real estate firm targets seniors, using family as a weapon. It detailed Lakeview Realty's methods, specifically mentioning my case. According to sources, the article read, "The company even colluded with unscrupulous children to first place their elderly parents in care facilities before acquiring their properties at a fraction of their value." The article caused a public uproar. The Department of Financial and Professional Regulation immediately launched an investigation into Lakeview Realty. Multiple victims came forward. The company's owner was brought in for questioning, and their accounts were frozen. We won. Maya burst into the office waving the newspaper, her face beaming. I wasn't so optimistic. This is just one battle. A company like this can just change its name and start over. What we need is stronger legislation to protect seniors in the first place. Dr. Reed agreed with me. Eleanor is right. Our next step should be to push for local ordinances that add special protections for real estate transactions involving seniors. Under her leadership, we began drafting a proposal for a senior homeowner protection ordinance to submit to the City Council. The work was complex and daunting, but it was crucial. Meanwhile, my personal life was also changing. Kevin sent a text message every week to check in, and would sometimes leave groceries at my door, but he never came inside. I knew it was his way of showing remorse, but I wasn't ready to let him back in so easily. Maya became a regular fixture in my home, coming for dinner at least twice a week. Her cooking was getting better and better, and she always tried to make my favorite dishes. Watching her, I often felt like I had gained a daughter. "Mrs. Vance, how's the braised fish?" she would ask, waiting eagerly for my verdict. Perfect," I'd say with a smile, though still a little way to go to beat my husband's recipe. "Then you'll have to teach me," she'd reply, her eyes shining. This simple, warm routine was a happiness I never thought I'd have again. But there were still undercurrents of trouble. One night, I was woken by the jarring sound of the doorbell. Through the peephole, I saw Jessica, her face a dark mask. "Open the door." "I know you're home," she yelled, pounding on the door. I didn't make a sound, quietly retreated to my bedroom, and dialed 911. By the time the police arrived, Jessica was gone, but she had spray-painted Old Hag in red on my door. The police took a report and recommended I install better security cameras. The next day, Clara helped me file for a restraining order against Jessica. Why would she suddenly show up like this? I asked, bewildered. Clara sighed. The Lakeview Realty case implicated her. The investigation found that Jessica was a part-time consultant for the company. Her job was to identify elderly homeowners with valuable property, including you. I drew a sharp breath. So, from the very beginning, I was their target. Will she go to jail? I asked. Very likely, Clara said. She's involved in multiple counts of real estate fraud, and the total amount is enormous. I hung up, my feelings a complicated mix. On one hand, Jessica deserved it. On the other, she was still the mother of my grandchildren. At the next workshop, I shared her case anonymously with the attendees. Seeing their shocked faces, I knew I had potentially saved a few more from a similar fate. After the workshop, an old man leaning on a cane stopped me. Mrs. Vance, thank you. My son has also been pushing me to sign over the house, promising to buy me a long-term care insurance policy. After listening to you, I've decided to see a lawyer first. I held his hand, my eyes welling up. This was why I did what I did. When I got home, I checked my phone out of habit. No text from Kevin today. The news reported a new development in the Lakeview case. Jessica had been taken into custody as a key suspect. I imagined Kevin must be having a hard time. After a long hesitation, I dialed his number. It rang several times before he answered, his voice hoarse. Mom, he said. Are you okay? I asked. There was a long silence on the other end. Jessica's been arrested. Her parents are taking care of the kids for now. I didn't know what to say. In the end, I just said, if you need help, let me know. Mom, He suddenly broke down sobbing. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what I did to you, to Dad's memory." Listening to my son's broken sobs, my heart clenched. Blood is thicker than water, and that tie can never be completely severed. "Kevin," I said softly, "everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them." That night, I had a strange dream. I dreamt my husband was on the balcony, watering the geraniums. The sunlight caught his white hair, making it shine. "Robert," I asked in my dream, "am I doing the right thing?" He turned around, his smile as warm as I remembered. "Eleanor," he said, "you're doing great." I woke up to a bright morning, the pillow wet with tears. Outside, the geraniums had bloomed, their white petals swaying gently in the morning light. On the day the Lakeview Realty trial began, I appeared in court as a witness. The entrance was swarmed with reporters and onlookers. When Jessica was led to the defendant's table, I almost didn't recognize her. Her once perfect makeup was gone, replaced by a haggard face and messy hair. She saw me, a flicker of resentment in her eyes, before she lowered her head. The prosecutor read the indictment, and the list of charges was staggering. Fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. The total amount involved was over $2 million, with more than 30 elderly victims. As a key member of the company, Jessica's role was to identify targets and use personal relationships to execute the scam. Listening to the charges, I felt a complex mix of emotions. This woman, once my daughter-in-law, was part of such a massive criminal enterprise. And my son, did he know? Was he involved? When my case was mentioned, a murmur went through the courtroom. It turned out Jessica had targeted my house from the beginning. Kevin had initially resisted, but eventually gave in to her persistence. According to the defendant Jessica Vance's confession, the prosecutor stated, she conspired with Kevin Vance to have the victim, Eleanor Vance, committed to a care facility to remove her as an obstacle to acquiring her property. I gripped the armrest of my chair. I had long suspected it, but hearing it confirmed in court still made it hard to breathe. Kevin, how could you have been so foolish? When it was my turn to testify, I calmly recounted my experience, emphasizing how an elderly person's trust in family can be exploited. My words resonated with many of the other seniors in the gallery. Some even began to cry softly. Jessica's lawyer tried to portray her as a minor player, manipulated by the company's owner. But the prosecutor presented evidence showing that Jessica not only helped plan multiple scams, but also received a significant cut of the profits. The trial lasted all day. Finally, the judge recessed the court, with a verdict to be announced at a later date. As I was leaving, a frail, white-haired woman stopped me, her hand trembling as she took mine. "Mrs. Vance, thank you for standing up. They tricked my husband out of our home. The shock sent him to the hospital. You've given us hope." I hugged her, at a loss for words. There were too many victims like her, and there was only so much I could do. When I got home, Maya was already in the kitchen, the house filled with the aroma of her cooking. Seeing me, she immediately turned down the stove. "Mrs. Vance, how did it go?" I briefly told her what happened. "Jessica got what she deserved," she said indignantly. Then she hesitated. Will this affect Kevin?" The prosecutor said he wasn't directly involved in the company's other scams, but as for my case, I sighed. "We'll have to see." After dinner, Maya mysteriously handed me an envelope. "Mrs. Vance, I want you to see this." Inside was an old photograph of Maya with a young woman. "This is my mother," Maya said softly. "She passed away when I was 5. My dad said her biggest regret was not being able to take care of my grandmother." I looked closely at the woman in the photo and saw the strong resemblance to Maya. "Mrs. Vance." Maya's eyes were red. "You know why I've been trying to help you? It's because you remind me of my grandmother. My dad said that when she passed, she was still clutching a picture of my mom." My own tears started to fall. So that was the story behind this sweet girl's kindness. "Oh, you silly child." I hugged her as if she were my own daughter. We talked late into the night. Maya told me stories of the mother she barely remembered, and I shared memories of raising Kevin. The joys and sorrows of 2 generations wove together in the moonlight. "Mrs. Vance, can I call you Mom?" Just once, Maya asked just before she went to bed. My heart warmed. I nodded. "Mom," she said softly, then shyly ran off to the guest room. That one word kept me awake all night. Life is strange. I had lost a disloyal son, but I had gained a devoted daughter. The next day, the verdict came down for the Lakeview case. The owner was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Jessica, as an accomplice, was sentenced to 5. Upon hearing the sentence, she collapsed and had to be carried out of the courtroom by the bailiffs. I didn't stay to watch. Instead, I went straight to the Alliance. Dr. Reed was planning a big event, Elder Rights Awareness Week. "Eleanor, you're just in time," she said excitedly. "The city has approved our proposal. Next month, we're launching a city-wide anti-fraud campaign for seniors." It was wonderful news. We immediately dove into the preparations, designing brochures, contacting media, training volunteers. It was exhausting but fulfilling work. During a lunch break, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. The caller identified himself as an employee at the State Correctional Facility. "Miss Vance? Your daughter-in-law, Jessica Vance, is requesting a meeting with you. She says she has something important to tell you." I was stunned. "What is it?" She wouldn't say, only that it's about your son. After much hesitation, I agreed to see her. The next day, in a cold, sterile visiting room, I faced Jessica through a glass partition. She wore an orange jumpsuit, her face pale, but the bitterness in her eyes was gone. "Mom," she started crying as soon as she spoke. "I'm so sorry." I said nothing, waiting for her to compose herself. "I need to ask you for a favor," she said, biting her lip. "It's about Michael. My parents are too old to care for him. And Kevin, he can't manage on his own." My heart clenched. "You want me to take care of my grandson?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know I have no right to ask, but Michael is innocent. He cries for his grandma every day." I closed my eyes, my grandson's sweet, smiling face appearing in my mind. Whatever wrongs the adults had committed, the child was indeed innocent. "I'll consider it," I finally said. "On one condition. Anything. I'll agree to anything," she said eagerly. "Tell me the truth." I looked directly into her eyes. "You and Kevin, how did it come to this?" Jessica was silent for a long time before she finally spoke. "At first, I just wanted a better life. Kevin's salary wasn't enough, and I liked expensive things. Then I met the owner of Lakeview. He said he had a surefire investment." As she spoke, a chilling truth emerged. From small personal loans to the grand real estate scam, Jessica and Kevin had sunk deeper and deeper into a swamp of greed. My house was just one of their many targets. Did Kevin know it was illegal? I asked, my voice trembling. Later on, he did. Jessica lowered her head. But by then, we were in too deep. We owed so much money to loan sharks. Leaving the prison, my heart was heavy as lead. Was my son's life ruined? Would my grandson essentially become an orphan? When I got home, I called Kevin. He took a long time to answer, his voice hoarse. "Mom, Jessica was sentenced to 5 years," I said directly. There was a pause. "I know. I was just at the courthouse. She asked me to take care of Michael." Another silence, then a suppressed sob. "Mom, would you? I know I have no right to ask, but Michael—" "Bring him here tomorrow," I interrupted. "As for you, we'll talk another time." I hung up and sat on the sofa in a daze until Maya came home from work. "Mrs. Vance, what's wrong?" she asked with concern. I told her about the prison visit and Kevin's request. To my surprise, Maya was fully supportive. "The child needs you," she said, taking my hand. "And this could be a chance for you and Kevin to reconcile." I gave a weary smile. "Silly girl, some things aren't so easily forgiven. But someone has to take the first step," she said softly. "Just like you said in court, you forgive the personal harm they did to you. This girl was using my own words against me." I ruffled her hair. "You?" The next day, Kevin brought Michael over. In the 6 months I hadn't seen him, my grandson had grown taller, but his face was thin and pale. He was shy when he saw me. "Michael, say hi to Grandma," Kevin urged him. "Grandma!" Michael suddenly burst into my arms and started crying. "Grandma, where were you?" "Mommy and Daddy are gone, And Grandpa and Grandma are mean. My heart melted instantly. I held the innocent child tight. Grandma's here now. It's okay. Kevin stood by, his eyes red. I let him in but didn't say much. I spent the entire afternoon playing with Michael, reading him picture books, feeling like I had gone back in time to when Kevin was that age. When Kevin was about to leave with Michael that evening, the boy refused to go, crying his heart out. I want to stay with Grandma. I want to stay with Grandma. Looking at my grandson's tear-streaked face, I made a decision. He can stay here tonight. You can bring his things tomorrow. Kevin nodded gratefully. As I walked him to the door, he suddenly knelt down and bowed his head to the floor. Mom, I am so sorry. I didn't help him up. I just said quietly, "Go. Come back early tomorrow." Closing the door, I held the sleeping child in my arms, a flood of emotions washing over me. Would this child become the new bond between me and Kevin? I didn't know. But I knew that my life was about to change again. Before bed, I sent a text to Maya. Can you help me buy some things for a child tomorrow? Michael is staying for a while. She replied instantly, That's wonderful. I'll go first thing in the morning. Mom. Looking at that word, Mom, I smiled and put down my phone. Life always finds a way to give you new hope when you least expect it. 3 days after Michael moved in, Maya basically moved in too, becoming a full-time nanny. She insisted on staying in the guest room, saying it would be easier to help care for both Michael and me. You're getting older. Taking care of a child is exhausting, she said, while feeding Michael his dinner. Besides, I was great at taking care of my little brother and sister. I smiled, watching her bustle about. With Michael here, the house was suddenly full of life and laughter again. Kevin came by every day after work to see his son, sometimes bringing fruit or toys. He was reserved and polite, a stark contrast to his old self. We tacitly avoided the past, focusing instead on the child's growth and education. A month later, the Silver Sentinel Alliance's Elder Rights Awareness Week officially kicked off. At the opening ceremony, I gave a speech as the vice president, sharing my story and what I had learned. The audience was filled with seniors, their families, and many reporters. The elderly are not a burden on society, I said into the microphone. We are a treasure. We have the right to a dignified old age and the right to protect our property. After the speech, many people crowded around me. One woman on a cane stood out. She had come all the way from the suburbs just to learn how to stop her son from selling her house. Mrs. Vance, she said, wiping away tears, my son and his wife are pressuring me to sign over the house. They say if I don't, they won't let me see my grandson. I patiently explained how to secure a deed, how to create a notarized will, and gave her our helpline number. Watching her determined walk as she left, my resolve grew even stronger. During the week-long event, we held dozens of workshops and consultations across the city. The media coverage was extensive, and Silver Sentinel became a household name. City officials even visited our booth and promised to support related legislation. Mrs. Vance, you're a star, Maya said, holding up a newspaper with my photo. I shook my head. What matters is how many people we help, not who becomes famous. And we did help. We received hundreds of pleas for assistance, with over 30 related to property disputes. The Alliance's legal team was swamped, but every case we resolved was a victory. Meanwhile, my relationship with Kevin continued to evolve. He started helping with small repairs around the house and took Michael to the park on weekends. Though we still didn't talk much, the ice between us was slowly melting. One rainy afternoon, Kevin suddenly asked me, "Mom, do you hate me?" I was making tea, and my hand jerked, spilling hot water. "I did," I said. "But now, it's more regret." "I know I was wrong," he said, looking down like a chastened child. "I've been thinking a lot. I failed you and Dad." I said nothing, just handed him a cup of tea. "Mom, I want to start over," he said, looking me in the eye. "I quit my old job. I'm going to open a small grocery store with a friend, live an honest life." I nodded. "That's good. Could you lend me some startup money?" he asked cautiously. "I'll sign a promissory note. I'll pay it all back." In the past, I would have agreed without a second thought. But now, I had learned to be cautious. Kevin, for money, you should go to a bank. If you have a solid business plan, they will give you a loan. His face flushed, but he didn't argue. You're right. I'll try. Watching his disappointed figure leave, I felt a pang of sympathy but stuck to my principle. True love isn't about unconditional giving. It's about helping someone stand on their own 2 feet. To my surprise, 2 weeks later, Kevin actually secured a small business loan. The store opened successfully. On opening day, Maya, Michael, and I went to show our support. It was a small store, but seeing Kevin busy and energetic, I saw a glimpse of the son I used to know. Mom, look, I stocked your favorite jasmine tea, he said, pointing to a shelf. That small detail made my eyes well up. He still remembered. On the way home, Maya said, Mrs. Vance, Kevin has really changed. Yes, I sighed. I hope this time it's for real. Before we knew it, it was time for Michael to start preschool. We chose a public school close to home. On his first day, he cried and clung to my leg. Grandma, don't go. Michael, be a good boy, I said, crouching down to wipe his tears. Grandma will be back to pick you up this afternoon. There are lots of friends and fun toys here. After much coaxing, the teacher finally got him into the classroom. Maya and I watched from the window until we saw him slowly start to play with the other children. Mrs. Vance, you're such a wonderful grandmother, Maya said, taking my arm. I smiled. I'm just doing what needs to be done. Returning to an empty house felt strange. I was about to tidy up Michael's toys when the doorbell rang. It was a delivery man with a rectangular package. Inside was a beautifully framed portrait of Michael, painted with remarkable likeness. A card was attached. To the best grandma, forever your loving Michael. P.S. Dad helped me pick this out. The tears came instantly. This would become the most precious decoration in my living room. When I picked Michael up that afternoon, he proudly showed me his artwork, a crayon drawing with the word Grandma scrawled on it. Teacher said mine was the best, he announced. I kissed his cheek. You're amazing, Michael. Life settled into a peaceful, fulfilling rhythm. My work at the Alliance, Michael's childhood, Kevin's recovery, Maya's companionship, my life was full. Jessica occasionally wrote from prison to ask about Michael. I always replied in detail, enclosing photos. Whatever she had done, she was still his mother. A year later, the Alliance celebrated its first anniversary. We rented a small hall and invited all our members and the people we had helped. Dr. Reed announced great news. Our Home Guard project had won a state-level award for excellence in public service. This award belongs to all of us, Dr. Reed said emotionally, especially to our Vice President, Eleanor Vance. Her courage is an inspiration to us all. Amid thunderous applause, I stood on the stage, looking at the sea of silver-haired faces, my heart full. Over the past year, we had helped hundreds of seniors, stopped dozens of scams, and even contributed to the passage of 2 local ordinances. After the ceremony, I took Michael and Maya to Kevin's store. He had closed early to cook a celebratory dinner for us. Mom, congratulations, he said, raising his glass of juice. I'm so proud of you. Michael mimicked his dad, raising his little cup. Cheers to Grandma. 4 glasses clinked in the air. In that moment, I realized that despite everything, I was lucky. I had a loving daughter in Maya, a son who was trying to be better, a wonderful grandson, and a community of like-minded friends. That night, after putting Michael to bed, I stood on the balcony, my husband's photo beside me. Robert, I whispered, I'm doing well. You can rest easy. A gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine. I knew that was his reply.